Good morning, everyone. My name is Dan Peterson, founder of Helping Hand Outreach. Today is Tuesday, May 21st, and I'm really excited that you can join with me today in sharing some good information to help you be more successful in your ministry. Let's look at the agenda in a little bit. I want to begin, though, with just a word from the Bible, a verse to start today off. It's Proverbs 4:5. Get wisdom, get understanding. Do not forget my words or turn away from them. Proverbs, of course, is the book of wisdom in the Bible. And now, today, more than ever, people need understanding, but they need wisdom. They need the ability to discern, and as they seek knowledge and understanding, they need the ability to be able to understand and navigate how to live our times and how to help each other out. This verse is very applicable today, especially with what's going on in our country, with so much information and so much uncertainty and concern about the direction we're going. So I just want to encourage you today that we have an awesome God, that through God all things are possible, and I wanted to encourage you today to be responsible yourself in seeking out knowledge and seeking out understanding. Don't rely solely on the advice of other people. Be responsible for yourself, and your viewing today is a good step in that direction, and we've got some great information to share with you. Would you please join me as we begin with the word of prayer? Heavenly Father, I give glory and praise and thanks to you, Lord, for the awesome God that you are, and I thank you for our country, Lord, that you've blessed us with. And I ask now, Lord, that as we look at, Father, at how to live our lives and how to help other people, Lord, and to preach your word, Lord, to bring others to salvation and to give glory to you, that you, Lord, would give us knowledge, that you, Lord, would bless us with wisdom, Father, to do that more effectually, Lord, and to have a strong foundation. We give you thanks, we give you praise, we give you glory. In Jesus' name, amen. We're going to share some information with you today. The purpose of Helping Hand Outreach is helping you to be a light to the world. The information that we're going to share today is not to be construed as legal advice, and the material presented is the property of Helping Hand Outreach, and any unauthorized use is prohibited. That's our disclaimer we have to say at the beginning of each presentation and seminar that we do. What's the purpose for today? We want to emphasize how your organization is formed is critical to the rights and privileges given by law. Many people, when they set up their faith-based organization, don't give much thought to how it's organized and how it's incorporated. They just think of what they want to do with the organization, and that's where their passion is. And that's not necessarily a right or wrong happening. It's just that people don't realize the structure, the organizational structure of their faith-based organization is critical. Be aware that people and organizations can waive rights. We all have rights guaranteed in the Constitution. But people can waive rights, and they do every day, and so can organizations and corporations. And understand how recent actions by the IRS have been orchestrated in delaying, denying, and defending actions against tax-exempt groups. So our topics today are going to focus on three main areas. We're going to look at just a brief overview of the IRS attack on tax-exempt organizations, and I'm going to give you three different sources related to this first topic. Second, we're going to look at the major 501c3 restrictions, and three, we're going to do a recap and overview of why faith-based organizations should be 508c1a organizations. Let's start with the first topic, the overview of the IRS actions on and attacks on tax-exempt organizations. There's lots of information that's available right now through media, okay? Whether it's TV, whether it's internet, whether it's newsprint, there's tons, and radio, there's tons of information out there, and it's ongoing. What I want to share with you is really what started this news and breaking news about the IRS attack on tax-exempt organizations. What really started this, as far as the start of public exposure to it, was the Treasury Inspector General report on the IRS that came out on May 14th. The IRS is an independent organization, but it does fall, at least that's what they say, underneath the Treasury Department of our government. So the Treasury Department and the Treasury Inspector General did an audit of the IRS. And why did that happen? So May 14th, members of Congress had earlier in the preceding year asked the Treasury Department to investigate the IRS to determine if the IRS, 1, targeted specific groups applying for tax-exempt status, 2, if they delayed processing of targeted groups applying for applications, and 3, if they requested unnecessary information from targeted groups. Early in 2010, the IRS began using inappropriate criteria to identify organizations applying for tax-exempt status to review for indications of significant political campaigns intervention. So this started around 2010. What TIGTA found was that the IRS used inappropriate criteria that identified for review Tea Party, and listen to this, and other organizations applying for tax-exempt status based upon their names or policy positions. So this started off with a focus in on Tea Party groups and Patriot groups, and it's expanded since then, and there's now evidence that it's been more than just Tea Party and Patriot groups that were targeted. Out of that audit, TIGTA recommended 9 recommendations. The IRS agreed to 7 of them. So I find that very concerning that this audit of the IRS, that they're not agreeing with their own recommendations from the oversight board of the Treasury Department. That's kind of scary to me. The audit that came out is 54 pages long, and you can check, and I encourage you to do that, and you can download it for yourself by looking at the Treasury website at www.treasury.gov/TIGTA. Okay, the second source that we want to share with you, it comes from the Thomas More Society Memorandum. As information of the audit was shared and made public, more questions were asked. Is this all that would really happen? When did this start? Who was involved? And lots of other questions. Well, shortly after the audit was made public, a law firm, which is the Thomas More Society, wrote a memorandum and sent it to Congress showing irrefutable evidence of IRS harassment of other tax-exempt organizations. These are not, I repeat, not Patriot or Tea Party groups. They're other tax-exempt organizations. Okay, so the Thomas More Society shared 3 different examples from groups that had applied for tax-exempt status, and they shared a report that was 151 pages long of the application and documents and emails and letters that went back and forth between each of those 3 groups and the IRS. And this is their conclusion, and this is what their memorandum said to the members of Congress. Legal cases handled by the Thomas More Society indicate that the Internal Revenue Service harassment of nonprofit organization extends well beyond Tea Party and Patriot groups, even to organizations whose primary purpose is to support and defend innocent human life. 3 of these organizations are or were clients of the Thomas More Society. Included with this memorandum are contemporaneous documents related to these 3 organizations, interactions with the IRS, and the private information has been redacted. Along with the other IRS cases recently made public, these cases form a pattern of an unconstitutional and illegal corruption of the Internal Revenue Service review process. We urge the Committee on Ways and Means to thoroughly investigate these abuses so that those responsible may be brought to justice. You can find this report here, it's a 151-page memorandum, on the Thomas More Society's webpage, and that's listed here on this screenshot there. So one of the questions that was asked out of this report in a hearing here just this last week to the acting IRS Commissioner Stephen Miller came from a congressman named Aaron Schock out of Illinois. And he questioned, and this is a quote, he brought up a question that was asked in one of these applications by a group that was seeking tax-exempt status, the Coalition of Life in Iowa. Here's the question. Please detail the content of the members of your organization's prayers. And Congressman Schock asked the acting IRS commissioner, would that be an appropriate question to a 501c3 applicant? Scrutinizing and asking about their prayers? And Mr. Miller replied, it pains me to say I can't speak to that one either. The third source we want to share with you is Senator Max Baucus' letter to the IRS commissioner. People have asked, when did this start and how did it start? Well, one of the things I want to share with you is how it got started. And here's one source that definitely got the ball rolling. And this is a copy of a letter from Mr. Baucus as a senator, as the head of a committee in Congress, to the IRS Commissioner Doug Shulman at the time, back in September 28, 2010. I want to read this to you. This is pretty critical. This is what Mr. Baucus said. This is to Mr. Shulman, the IRS Commissioner. Request that you and your agency survey major 501c4, C5, and C6 organizations involved in political campaign activity to examine whether they are operated for the organization's intended purpose. Based on your report, I plan to ask the committee to open its own investigation and or to take appropriate legislative action. So Mr. Baucus is using his political position that is a regulatory agency and has jurisdiction. He starts off by saying the Senate Finance Committee has jurisdiction over revenue matters. So he's exercising his authority over the IRS and over revenue matters and directing the IRS commissioner, the top official, to start investigating tax-exempt groups. And that was back in 2010. The second topic that we want to talk about is to learn the major 501c3 restrictions. I shared with you 3 different sources that relate to the abuse of the IRS and attacks on tax-exempt organizations for you to review and you understand. And I trust that you'll do that on your own time. We're not going to go through each one of those reports in detail, but read those because there's important information on those sources of information that you need to be aware of. Now the question is how does the IRS and you and your work, if you're involved with a nonprofit, a tax-exempt organization, how does that interact if you want to form or you are currently a 501c3 organization? Let's take a look at that. First of all, not all nonprofits are the same. There is a misconception that all 501c3s are the same and have the same rights, the same privileges, and are treated the same way. That is not correct. If you're a faith-based organization, you have the choice to be a 501c3 or a 508c1a. Okay? The difference is one, you have a right to do, the other, you apply for using this very same application as all other 501c3s. And all those other 501c3s do not have the same constitutional or legal protection as faith-based organizations. All 501c3 organizations must apply to the IRS in order to be tax exempt, including churches, Integrated Auxiliary Association of Churches. If you want to have a letter of determination from the IRS, you have to file and ask for it. And you do that by filling out an application that starts using Form 1023. It's 27 pages long. It's 31 total, but the first few pages are some instructions. And then there's 27 pages is just the start. The cost of filling out the Form 1023 and sending it into the IRS, you have to write a check to the IRS for $850 if there's going to be gross receipts of more than $10,000 for the year. And all 501c3 organizations have restricted speech. Some of you may know all these restrictions, but I want to share with you another restriction that is not often shared with. It comes from USC 26, section 6104. Okay? If you're not familiar with that, you need to be aware of that law. That law title is Publicity of Information Required from Certain Exempt Organizations and Certain Trusts. What's important about this law is that all 501c3 organizations their applications to the IRS and all papers submitted in support, and any letters or other documents, emails, written correspondence that go back and forth between the IRS and the organization applying for the 501c3 status shall be made open for public inspection. Okay, understand this. Even if you form your organization, your faith-based organization, as a church, your records and everything that you send into the IRS is open for public inspection to anybody, including individuals or groups that are hostile towards religion, including anybody or groups that want to find out and harass the organizers of the church. Do you see the magnitude of that? It's all public information. And those applications ask for detailed information. Why would people do that if they don't have to? Because most people are misinformed and they're told that if they want to form a faith-based organization, they have to be a 501c3. That's not true. So this is huge because we're finding out more and more that indeed individual people, sometimes even, as I pointed out, a senator, it can be hostile towards a political ideology that's conservative or faith-based. And clearly they didn't just stop with one type of tax-exempt organization. And we don't know what the extent of where they're going to look at because that's still coming to light. So the last question that we wanted to cover today is, rest assured, why faith-based organizations should be a 508c1a. The benefits for your faith-based organization being a 508c1a is the organization and structure in incorporating and operating the entity is a right. The application is not required. You don't have to ask approval. You don't have to send it in, a packet of information into someone to have them consider whether or not to grant you the ability to be tax exempt. The 508c1a automatically is. It's tax exempt. The donations are tax deductible for donors to the fullest extent of the law. It does not make your church more churchish to be a 501c3. It doesn't. There's no advantage to that. There's no additional cost of filing with the IRS because you're not having to send the application in, you're not having to pay someone to fill out all that paperwork, and you don't have to pay that application fee. And the 508c1a, we advocate, enjoys free speech rights guaranteed in the First Amendment that the 501c3s have all waived. That's huge for preaching and teaching what your religious views are. There's also no organization documents on file with the IRS. You're not disclosing and notifying them everything about your organization, nor do you have to. And there's no organization documents on file for public inspection. Those are key qualities that the 508 has that 501c3 faith-based organizations do not have. So today we talked a little bit about and gave you 3 different sources to help you understand a little bit more about the IRS attack on tax-exempt organizations. We're going to find out in these days and weeks to come what more was going on and how in depth it went and what other groups were affected and if there's going to be accountability to those that did that. We also shared the major 501c3 restrictions, and we also shared why all faith-based organizations should be a 508c1a. Okay guys, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for viewing today's webinar. I want to just encourage you to be responsible, to investigate and look at how your organization is formed, to review that, to understand how that is formed is critical for you reaching what your mission and purpose is, and to be able to understand what's going on with tax-exempt organizations today. And so I want you to be able to have this information, to be able to investigate it, and use that to help you be more effective. That's our goal, is for you to be a light to the world, for you to be a light to your families, to your community, and to those outside your community, that you can be more effective. Thanks again for today. God bless you.